Okay, so looks like we have a good attendance here. We're probably have a couple more people will be dialed in as we get started. I want to welcome everyone to our webinar. Um, the topic of the webinar is outsourcing, outsourcing your mortgage operations. This is for those that did not hear about it or see about it, this was a general session topic that we had at our last exchange conference. It had a really, really good reception among many of our clients that heard this. In fact, I know some of you probably were at the exchange and heard it and now want to probably hear it more and maybe a little more detail, and we will absolutely do that. On the call with us is Sam Mehta from Verity Global Solutions. He's our vendor partner that is responsible for the outsourcing, and also on the call working with Sam is Akmal Khan. So he and Sam are from Verity. And then what's really nice is we have from Victorian Finance, an MCT client, longtime client, is Sonny Bringol, the president. And with Sonny is Natalee Young, as well as Casey Domski. Natalee and Casey are actually the folks that are integral in helping, that helped get this whole integration started between the two companies. So they're in the thick of it, the day-to-day of what happens. So we ran this panel at our conference, at our last exchange conference, with not only Victorian Finance on the panel, but Premium Mortgage, another MCT client, and another MCT client, CLM Mortgage, was on there as well. And the reception was really, really positive. A lot of questions, a lot of interest. And because of that, we thought it really important to kind of have that same session run again. And for those that missed it or those that want to hear more about it, heard it the first time, now the second time. So with that, that's what we're trying to do today, is give you guys an overview and if possible, delve deeper into things and into the topics. So with that, I'd like to just first introduce Sam Mehta, the president of Verity Global Solutions.
How you doing? Thanks, Bill.
So Sam is from Global, and then Sonny, want to introduce Sonny Bringol from Victorian Finance.
Hello, everybody. Sonny Bringol, Victorian Finance. Happy to be on the call.
So on this webinar, you will have the ability to ask questions. You can type it in. It's just one other person with myself running this. So if there's a lot, we'll try to get to them and whatnot. But we, starting at a high level, the whole purpose why we went to this, we had this session we were talking about, is because many of our clients, that are hedging are making some nice profitability, lift over best efforts. One particular client of mine keeps asking me, how do I make more? How do I make more? And you can only make what the investors are giving, but a nice alternative is, instead of looking for profitability on the loan sale side, is to look for decreasing your costs and your expenses on the operation side. And there's a lot of, and you'll see in the slide to come, there's a lot of nice benefits as to what you gain on the operation side by outsourcing, faster turn time, better accuracy, cheaper costs, all that type of stuff. So that was the whole reason for bringing this in, is to bring an alternative solution. Not, it's not capital markets related, which is where MCT's specialty lies, but we do want to help our client, to show you how to, make more money with less, and this is an opportunity to do so. So with that, Sam, I'd like to, turn it over to you. We're going to bring up your PowerPoint, and maybe you can talk a little bit about, what you do and what you're doing with some of our, I'm not sure how many MCT clients you have signed up now, as well as other clients. But I'd like to turn it over to you and bring up the PowerPoint so we can walk through that.
Sure. Yeah, thanks everybody. Yeah, we have several MCT clients that work with Verity Global Solutions, and our company is essentially focused on this specific size of company, and and focus a little bit more on custom solutions. So maybe what I can do is talk to you a little bit more about what I mean by that. If you could just jump to the first slide. So one of the important aspects of our model with Verity is we're strictly behind the scenes. So all the functions we perform are limited to email-based, web-based, LOS-based functions. So we don't contact anybody outside of your organization. So we're not talking to borrowers. We're not talking to your other colleagues in the industry. So the idea is a company like yours can keep the look and feel of your company, keep your culture from an external standpoint, and we become essentially an assembly line production type setup behind the scenes. And some of the things that make it valuable, especially today, is you've got challenges associated with low unemployment. It's difficult for companies to hire, retain employees with a very strong economy back home, so what that does, and it's expected to actually get worse. So what we bring to the table is a highly available demographic out of India, where you have abundant labor available that has strong U.S. mortgage knowledge, they're fluent in English, tech savvy, and are used to working in a BPO environment, which allows you to have 24-hour shifts where you can get a lot of your work done overnight, also in the same shift, in the same time zone. And through a BPO setup, essentially what that is you have a very high utilization-based model where essentially we have turnaround times for each task that we agree to with our customers. And based on that, we actually count down to the nearest minute the utilization of the employees that we contract with our customers, and you have a utilization report that you see every month that gives you a full detailed drill down of the task performed in terms of the volume that Verity worked on per employee, essentially by the minute. So the other big aspect of a BPO culture is because of physical IT security requirements, none of our employees bring cell phones into the workspace. There is no personal email access. So, you've got, no Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter, no music, so on and so forth. So it's a culture that in a BPO, it's accepted. That's the way the employees work. It's a highly utilization metric-based model. So, there's huge efficiencies to be realized. I mean, outside of the obvious cost savings because of the labor differences, there's a high efficiency model. For whoever's interested, I can talk more about the pricing at some point, but it's essentially the option is to have dedicated employees. So it's a flat fee per month, all in. So our clients benefit from not having to worry about sick leave, turnover, real estate cost, benefits, so on and so forth, hiring and firing, and that really becomes a big part of the value addition that Verity provides because it becomes our problem. Right.
So Sam, that's a great overview, just at a high level. I'd like to go over to Sonny now and just sort of say, hey, ask Sonny, maybe you could talk about why you even looked at this model to begin with, why you decided to leverage this, what worked, and what you and Sam kind of created together. Maybe you could talk about that aspect of what you from your side, as many of our clients sitting in your shoes.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Sam. It was 2 years ago. I was trying to deal with a lot of volume that we were trying to process, and the staff and everybody was stressed. And I saw further volume increasing in the months to come, and it was just next to impossible for me to hire enough people, quality people, and train them to get them up to speed fast enough. And I started looking at alternative options, and I looked at outsourcing, and we've all seen these emails come across with, we'll do processing for you, we'll do underwriting for you, but they're pretty expensive. And looking at it, very expensive. And so I started looking even deeper at outsourcing even further, and I started founding foreign offshoring, which is Asia, India, and started looking into that. And I just is that a patriotic thing to outsource or not? And so I started investigating it even further, and I had my meetings with our aggregators that we do at the secondary conference, and I was talking with Wells Fargo and Chase. And Wells Fargo, when I was talking to them, I asked, how many people do you have in India working on my files that we sell to Wells Fargo? And they just nonchalantly said about 100. And I said, well, 100 what? And they said 100,000 people. The Wells Fargo had 100,000 people working on our mortgages in India. I found out Chase had something like 50,000. Bank of New York Mellon had like 30,000. I found out all of the companies that we sell our loans to and compete with, a lot of, had enormous operations in India. And those are the people I'm competing against. And the more I investigated it, is that the largest mortgage companies and aggregators, this is a normal practice for them of utilizing process outsourcing. And so realize that if I'm going to compete against them and be successful in this business and achieve some of the things we want, I have to look at utilizing it as well. And finding some of these companies to work with smaller regional mortgage banks, because we do about 350 loans a month. We're not doing 10,000. That they wouldn't give us very much attention. So I found the customer service for companies our size was just not there, that they really didn't want to talk with regional mortgage banks. We weren't big enough for them to address. And that's what Sam Mehta and I have been friends for a long time, and I was discussing this issue with him, and realized that they had operations in India that could do exactly what we needed them to do. And so that's how Sam and I started off with initially with Verity in the beginning to work on our systems, and they gave us the customer service we needed. They didn't matter that we were 10,000. They were happy to deal with us with a few hundred loans a month. So that's how I got started. I'll pause for a minute. Any questions on that?
So yeah, I mean, if anyone has questions, you can put it in. You can type in a question. We can unmute you so you can ask it. You just have to there's a button there to raise your hand. So, we can make this interactive if you have specific questions for, Sam or Sonny at this point, or we can keep on moving. But while we're waiting for that though, Sonny, one of the other interesting things I thought that you had mentioned was when you went to this model, what does it mean for your own employees? Are they going to be out? Are they going to be out of a job because of this? And how you framed it and how you set it up, I thought was a really interesting model. If you could touch on that.
Well, one of the main objectives, the objections that we got from people was even a lot of us personally, when we get on a customer service call, we want to talk to somebody with unbroken English. We didn't want any of our people outside the company to even be aware that we were utilizing services in India. So we designed it in a way that no outside verbal communication will happen with Verity involved. Now, Verity may very well initiate by email or text or other methods communication with the outside world, but verbally and response-wise, it's all our internal Victorian finance staff that will do all that communication. So that definitely, that practice eliminated one of the major obstacles of acceptance inside of Victorian finance for that. Importantly, is that our loan officers didn't even know we were outsourcing for a year until I told them. They still don't have any idea that the activities of a lot of the outsourcing activities are done. Loan officers need to sell. All they want to do is sell. They don't need to worry about everything else. But our clients outside world and our loan officers certainly didn't even know that we were outsourcing a lot of the activities and duties and tasks inside the company to get a lot higher pull-through and efficiency. And a lot of the staff, get their acceptance from the standpoint of this is creating job security because then helping us be more competitive. If we don't become competitive in this environment, the cost of a loan is not going down. And if I don't find ways to reduce the cost of operations, then it's going to threaten all of our jobs in the first place, and we won't be able to operate. So it's something we need to accept and embrace as one of the tools that we use to improve our systems. Same thing with automation. When we get Encompass or any of our loan originating systems that do more tasks that reduce the workload of one of our team members, we tell them you have to look at it the same way. It's just another one of our tools in our tool bag to be more efficient in providing a more competitive product for our clients and be successful in this industry.
So that's great. So we do have one question that just came in, and I, it's actually a nice segue. But one of the questions asked is, so what are you outsourcing? What functions? Underwriting, processing, closing, and I kind of know what you started with, but I thought it was interesting how you started, what you decided to start with, what function, and then really what are you doing at this point now?
Okay. Well, one of the things, our key thing is that we're a referral-based, purchase-oriented mortgage regional mortgage bank. We close on time. And so I didn't want anything to mess with our process of closing on time. So the first place that we tested this was on post-closing operations, that if there was a delay of a couple of days because of something, it wouldn't have affected our customer service delivery levels. So we tested it first in post-closing and setting up the packages we send to our investors on the initial submission of packages. So the checklist and everything that we do to create those packages, Verity, quickly learned all the tasks and duties and everything inside of our unique system, because all of us are unique. We all have slight differences in operations. And so Verity took that over for submission to our investors. The responses on suspenses was still our post-closing analyst that would respond and work on the suspenses, but the initial submission was done by Verity. And very quickly, we learned we didn't need as many post-closers. So we took 2 post-closers and we retasked them to other duties inside the company that I needed support for. So it quickly reduced the number of people I needed for post-closing. And as we discovered the efficiency of that, we gradually migrated Verity all through the organization. The next step was to go into quality control. And now we do 100% pre-funding quality control checks. Verity does all the quality control checks, does some analysis as well, but some of the complicated stuff our QC people will directly handle and take care of. But a majority of this stuff is done by Verity now. And then we moved it even further into our checklist for, I can continue on from processing, underwriting, disclosure desk, appraisals, and I'm sure Casey and Natalee can add on some of the other things that I'm missing at the moment that we currently have them do. But they're a permanent part of our toolkit that we use to help improve operations and apply anywhere we find something we need to improve on. So
Natalee, that's great. Great segue to Natalee. We have a question that kind of ties into that, but basically, and this is really interesting. So, what type of training was involved to get the outsourcing up to speed, to get Verity up to speed with how Victorian works, and how did that all go? So I know, Natalee, you were actively involved in that. Natalee is runs the operations of Victorian, so maybe you could kind of talk about that.
Well, we started using Verity in post-closing, and really the training didn't take that long. The training, we did a couple training sessions. We always do a go-to meeting and we record it. So I always send the recording to Verity so they can save it and then go back and reference it as they need to. But we started working on getting them trained on our post-closing checklist. So once the file comes back from the title company, they would go through all the documents that we had uploaded into Encompass, go through our checklist and put the package together so that we had it ready to submit to the investor once the loan was committed. And at that point, I just had the post-closers just kind of spot checking a lot of different packages. We made some tweaks here and there, but I would say probably within a month or so, we really didn't have to check anything anymore. And we haven't had any issues with the packages that we have submitted. From there, we started training them on the purchase advices, because I'm the one who was processing all the purchase advices, and some days it would take up my entire day. So it took a couple training sessions, and now they upload all the purchase advices, which is nice because now in the background, I have different reports that I run on the purchase advices. So, you know, I can go in and review them, and I don't have to spend my entire day processing them. And at this point in post-closing, we have them submitting all the FHA insurance applications, and we are working on getting them trained on going through and pulling all the insuring documents and getting them uploaded to Encompass, or just emailing them directly to the investors that need them.
Okay, great. And then Sam, how about from your side, talking about the training, your employees getting up and running, and maybe Akmal too. You know, how do you see it from your end?
Yeah. So, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, it's showing me muted here. In terms of the capabilities that we have at Verity, we have extremely experienced people like Akmal. We have team leaders, et cetera, that, you know, are extremely familiar with all the agency guidelines, all the different tasks involved with manufacturing a loan. So in terms of the actual tasks, we do not need any onboarding. Essentially, what we do is we start with some test loans just so we can integrate and understand the customer's processes, and we're ready to roll pretty quickly. So we say, you know, maybe 2 weeks to do some test loans and work out any of the kinks between the customer's processes and our understanding of them. And pretty much, you know, on paper, we say, okay, in 60 days, we'll be up to the desired efficiency, but it happens sooner. Okay.
And then just going back to the different functions that are being outsourced, a question came up, and I don't know if this was explained correctly, but Sonny or Natalee, in terms of I'm pretty sure only the Verity employees only interface with Victorian employees, and then it's up to the Victorian employees to deal with the borrowers, the realtors, all that type of stuff. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct. Verity does not communicate with anybody outside the company.
So if somebody's doing processing, the processing that's outsourced to Verity, they're doing that for they almost work for a processor at Victorian, who then helps them with their workload, which then makes that person more efficient than Victorian, to be able to have more time to work with the borrower, realtors, or whatnot, right?
That is correct. The whole point of it is that to switch a lot, to get our processors more on problem solving of communication with the clients, and Verity in the background is basically doing a lot of the problem solving that doesn't require direct communication with the client. And we're getting them more and more into the intellectual aspects of that. And it's a comfort, inside the company as well. But the comfort is quickly accepted when you see how well they do.
So maybe we can move to the slide, Sam. We're going to of the different I don't know, I'm calling them silos, but the different functions that are outsourced that you've divided up, and then maybe we could talk about each one of those functions just at a high level. We can show everybody what you're handling.
Sure. So if we can, maybe this is a good one right here. So essentially, we offer an end-to-end solution for all the different buckets that we have here. Starting with loan application, we can perform the loan registration, the entire loan setup, send out the initial disclosures. We can submit the loans for EOS recommendations. When you look at the loan processing, we can evaluate all the income, credit, asset disclosures, and determine if the loan is good to go for underwriting, or if it needs to go back to the processor for still needs. Also at this stage, we order all the third-party documents such as title, flood cert, appraisal, fraud report, IRS transcripts, etc. At the pre-underwriting stage, we can calculate, DTI, LTV, qualifying income, do the asset validation, appraisal reports, title reports for any corrections, and we can submit a summary to the underwriter using a transmittal summary. So at this stage, basically what we're doing is if and any of our clients have underwriters that are maybe, able to knock out, 2 to 3 loans a day, by utilizing this service from Verity, they should be able to increase their efficiency to nearly double, right? Because we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting and making it readily available for the underwriter. When you look at the pre-closing and closing area, we do full pre-closing review to confirm the integrity of the docs, VOE, full closing document preparation, escrow setup, and so on. We already talked about post-closing that Sonny mentioned. We can review the entire closing package, loan conditions prior to submitting to the investor, and we also perform the PA and the investor submission. And the last part is compliance review. We perform the compliance reviews as indicated, HMDA, Maven, and the post-consummation CD. We also support some title companies, so this is, we're not talking about that here, but we can prepare review title reports based on abstract reviews and so on. So just a quick walkthrough of what we can offer in each individual area. So it's pretty much an end-to-end type solution.
So do you do any underwriting at all then? Or, I mean, I see the pre and post, but has anybody used you for pure underwriting?
No, we support underwriters. So our goal is to make underwriters more efficient by doing a lot of the time-consuming work behind the scenes.
Can I add something on that as well? Our goal, the credit decision remains with Victorian Finance, and that's especially the case on all the Govy loans, HUD, FHA, USDA. But as just Sam said is correct, but it is our full intent to train them to be able to make the decisions on the conforming loans, and to underwrite Govy loans thoroughly enough so my Govy underwriters get a perfected file to make their job a lot easier.
Perfect. So one of the other questions that came up just at a high level, and I know this might be a tough one because I know you're not in New York, Sonny, but I know, Sam, I know you have a client that's based in New York. New York cybersecurity law. I don't know if you have experience with that or not, but the question was, how do you handle that? And again, I know you meet a lot of security requirements just in general, that I know you can explain how that works, but I don't know if you have, if you heard anything about that, the New York with their cybersecurity laws.
No, Bill, I'm not very familiar with that portion. Essentially, we rely on all our clients to verify that compliance. But Verity is ISO 27001 compliant, so it's a full, very stringent IT and security ISO conformance. But we do rely on. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, a lot of our quality control. When I also did further investigation of this, I didn't mention this in the panel. I investigated our quality control companies and what do they do? Because basically they're underwriting the file. Our 10% submissions or 20% or whatever our policy chooses. And I started talking to them about what they're doing, and all of them use overseas underwriters to do their quality control reviews. And so regardless of whether we like it or not, all of our information is going overseas, and they have to have policies and procedures to protect that information. And us as lenders and vendor management have to monitor those carefully. And so, looking at what their requirements are is just what Sam described, is they have the same protections of ISO certifications, but also further protections that Verity has as well as the room where this work is done. There's no USB drives, there's no phones, there's no way to take a screenshot, there's no way to email out screenshots or data or take data in any way. It's more secure than any system I have. Mm-hmm. And that that us as vendor managers, we still have to monitor them anyway. All of our vendors and our quality control companies would fall under that same guideline and digging into how they deal with it as well.
Right.
To expand on what Sonny is saying, Bill, it's pretty strict where, our employees cannot even bring paper and pencil into the work area, right? Everything's locked down. We have lockdown security gates in front of the building. It's biometric entry only. We have, security guards at the entrance. Employees cannot go in with. Of course, the computers are locked down. You cannot access anything with any kind of DVDs or jump drives or anything. There's nothing of that sort. but nobody can walk in or walk out with anything.
And
It's
then,
way stricter than, yeah.
and then the way, so the way someone would access, how do they get on Victorian system is what they're working in directly, right? They're cloud-based right into Encompass to do the
Exactly. We don't download anything. We work directly in the customer systems.
Okay. So a couple questions asked. Well, one is, maybe talk a little bit about rep and warrant protection that, Verity may offer to a client, for in these services.
Could you repeat that, Bill? I'm sorry.
Can you just talk about is there any rep and warrant protection or, error and omission type thing, protection for the?
Yes, absolutely. We carry errors and omissions insurance, and also within our contracts, we have the ability to compensate customers up to a certain amount right there in the agreement that we have with the customer.
Okay, and then I'm just, a couple more questions are coming in. So actually someone had asked, and I think this was already answered, but, does Victorian use Verity for post-closing and pre-fund audits? And I definitely know you use post-closing, that's how you first started. And I believe you're already doing pre-funding now as well, right? So Sonny, you're doing the whole gamut?
Yeah, Natalee, you want to describe that? Natalee said, we do 100% of our pre-funding quality control checks are done by Verity. And that was, we just recently got our Fannie Mae approval. And it was, we went over this with our Fannie Mae approval and explained, and Fannie Mae was very happy that we do 100% of pre-funding quality control. But the only way I could afford it really is to have Verity team doing the pre-funding quality control checks on all files, and then the quality control team resolving a lot of the complicated issues that come up as a result.
Sonny, just to clarify that as well, I think the question might be asking, are we doing post-closing quality control audits using Verity? To answer that, no, we do not currently.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just reading it off, but maybe, I don't know, the person who wrote that may very well have been asking that. So thanks for that clarification. So, we kind of talked about how Verity is set up, what got you started in this, how you started, what you looked at, how it's working. I know, and just in conversation that it's obviously been widely successful. Are you seeing any improvement in turn time? Because one of the huge benefits, aside from the outsourcing to reduce turn time, to reduce to reduce the workload on the staff, is, are you seeing loans get processed faster, closed faster? I mean, that actually results in faster hedging turn times, and which brings it back to capital markets. But are you seeing that pick up at all?
Natalee can address how fast they buy them on the secondary market first, and then I'll address a different point and some of the operations. Natalee, you want to add on that?
Yeah, it has definitely helped in post-closing, because my post-closers can focus more on really getting suspenses cleared quickly instead of a lot of the administrative behind the stuff prep work that needs to be done. I mean, we're consistently running our warehouse lines. Everything is within 15 to 17 days at this point.
Okay.
And then on the operation side, so we're a close on time organization. So we're going to close on time come hell or high water. Just the amount of drama, how close to closing is what I'm trying to eliminate. And that we just have a lot less drama getting close to closing than we did before. Because a lot of these problems are identified so much earlier in the process, because we have people looking at them and making sure they cover them, identify them, and provide a solution path to ensure that we don't have to resolve them closer to closing.
Okay, great. So at this point, before we move into the next phase, I know people are writing questions now, but are there any additional questions? Because some of the things that we thought we would show would be the checklists that have been created that Verity is using to do, to handle some of these, these functions. But before we jump into that, we've seen some good questions come across, and happy to get any other questions answered. And one question has been asked a few times. Yes, this is being recorded, so if other folks want to listen, we can get that out to you. And the material that we're going over, can also be handed, so you can have that and take a look at that as well. So that's available. But with that, Sam, do you think it's appropriate to jump into the checklist, or should we go back and maybe kind of walk through the PowerPoint a little bit more, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we can certainly kind of flip through that a little bit if you like. Let me just, if you can flip to the next slide, we can talk about that a little bit.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is essentially what I spoke about in the previous slide, just a little bit more detail in terms of, we can perform the loan registration, also loan setup, submit for AUS recommendations, and order all these third-party search and things like that. Just one quick second, okay? Let me kind of just quickly flip through these slides, and then maybe we just show everybody an example, a sample engagement, which would be through a checklist, so they can kind of get a view for the level of the detail, right?
Do you want us to go right to the checklist, or do you want us to show each slide here?
Actually, maybe we just spend about a few seconds on each one just to see if anybody has any questions, and then we can go straight to the checklist.
Sounds good.
Just a quick flip through. So, you can look at, at this stage, essentially, the detail we get into with the income review calculations, the credit review validations here, third-party orders, and so on. We'll address this more in the checklist. Keep going, Bill, please. Okay. Here's some pre-underwriting functions. And then go to the next one. I think this is everything we talked about earlier. So why don't we go ahead and show a sample engagement? That would be maybe a loan setup function that we perform at Verity. If you want to pull up that one first checklist. And I'm going to introduce Akmal here. Akmal Khan is our BPO manager. He's based in Mumbai. He's joining us from there. He works the same time zone as we do, so he's available during our business hours. 12 years he's worked at night, so we call him a vampire. But
hello, everyone. Basically, in continuation of the discussion, this is just a sample engagement of how a loan setup or a processing is done, wherein using this checklist, we are trying to ensure the loans which are sent or submitted to underwriting are good for a credit decision. So be it initial credit and income approval, or it is a final approval, we are reviewing all the documents which are required as per the AUS based on the recommendation, covering all the 4 C's of the underwriting aspect, looking at the credit, credit, assets, income, and the other the collateral documents. So what we try and do at this stage is basically minimize all the efforts of the loan processor and the underwriter, and making sure when we send this the report back to the loan officer or the underwriter, they have a ready-made summary of what all documents are still pending before a loan decision can be made, and or if everything is in the file, whether the initial credit and income approval can be given on the loan file or not. So we help the loan officer. At the same time, the underwriter, instead of reviewing or underwriters looking at the different documents, and making a decision, they have the summary on hand. So if we just continue to scroll down, this checklist that you have, it's completely that you're looking at is categorized into different headings and subheadings. So we start reviewing of all the disclosures, which majorly covers all your loan required, loan specific disclosures. At the same time, if there are any special state and federal disclosures which needs to be validated, they are validated in this section. So when we refer an audit point as passed, that means the document is in file and it has been reviewed with all the required information which needs to be there on the document. And if in case if any of the required information is missing, we would just highlight it as fail, and then update a relevant comment for the loan officer so that he knows what exactly is missing and what needs to be procured from the borrowers or from the third party or the vendor company. So we review the disclosures, then we move on to look at what are the recommendations, what are the requirements from the AUS. So based on the type of income borrower has submitted to get the loan qualified, what is his current DTI, what all needs to be considered before a loan decision can be made. We review AUS, then moving on from the AUS, we start with reference to AUS requirement. We review the credit report to verify if there are any liabilities which are disclosed on 1003 do not match with credit report, or all the liabilities on credit report is considered into your debt to income ratio correct calculation. And at the same time, if there are any, based on our observation of other documents, if we realize there are any undisclosed liabilities which needs to go as a part of the DTI calculation, or a relevant letter of explanation is required from the borrower, that's all get reviewed in the credit section here. And at the same time, we make sure we validate the residential history of the borrower. If there are any multiple SSNs which are reflecting on credit, or any other fraud alerts or any alerts are showing up, we request or we highlight the loan officers to get the relevant letter of explanation in file. So this is where the entire depth consolidation or depth verification of a borrower happens in this section. And then moving on to have the customer qualified, making sure we are validating the capacity of the borrower based on the type of income that is submitted on 1003, be it is borrower who are self-employed, salaried, on pension or retirement income, or any other source of income. The income documents are reviewed for legibility, for the correctness, and the most recent version of the document is in the file to make sure we have 2 years of employment history. At the same time, we are also making sure the income is most likely to continue for the next 3 years. So the relevant comments are updated if in case there is a discrepancy in the income documents. And if there are moving on, if we have assets required as per the AUS, validation of your liquid assets, non-liquid assets, checking account, savings account, using 60%, 70% of investment from assets document, be it a retirement plan or insurance or a 401k. We validate whether we have enough funds with the borrower for the loan to close, and if there are any reserves required, do we have the required document from the borrower if he has to convert the non-liquid cash into liquid cash. And the other most important documents in terms of the escrow, the flood insurance if the property is subjected to a flood, if it is in a flood zone, whether the required flood insurance policy is in file, does it have the amount on the insurance policy, does it cover the dwelling, does it match the AUS guidelines of minimum required coverage with replacement clause. So this is all that gets validated at the insurance stage, when this also covers the mortgage insurance part of it. At the same time, if we have the appraisal report in file, there is basic preliminary appraisal review that happens, making sure all the data which needs to be cross-checked with the title report, your 1003, and the other documents is in compliance. The appraiser is licensed to do an appraisal at the subject property. The description of the property is matching with what has been disclosed. And in case if there is a discrepancy, again, we request a corrected copy of the appraisal report. And then moving on, these are more of the transaction-based audit functions. So if it's a purchase transaction, do we have the most recent purchase contract with all the attached addendums in file? Then there are FHA, VA, or USDA specific documents or disclosure, which gets validated for integrity and the required information to be part of it.
Hey,
So,
if I could jump in. So this is an extremely detailed checklist that obviously you guys cover. It's pretty detailed and you cover a lot. And this is for every one of your functions. You run through something like this.
Yeah, Bill, so the idea behind showing this checklist is to kind of give people a feel for the scope of the work that can be done by outsourcing. The work is not necessarily driven by checklists. This is just to encapsulate the scope. We can utilize our checklist, customer checklist, or work directly in the LOS, but at least folks get a feel for the level of detail we can get into.
Yeah, it looks phenomenal. One thing I was going to ask is in terms of the timing. I think you run like. Are you running 24/7, 3 shifts? How's that work?
We're going 24/7, 5 days, 6 days a week, right, Akmal?
Yeah, 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
5 days a week, but it's 24/7. So we finish our work
Correct.
here at 5 o'clock, and there's 2 more shifts that are going. That are working on your, Victorian behind the scenes. So a lot of work gets done within a quick time frame, which is really, pretty impressive.
Let me jump in real quick. So that's helped out. At the end of the day, the processors submit, or whoever group submit items to Verity, and they take care of the items overnight. And in the morning when the team comes back, they have their items to work on. So a lot of work has been done overnight. But some of those tasks that require immediate response, we do have Verity people during the day at the exact same hours of our team here, and they're able to augment what they do during the day as well. So we kind of get the best of both worlds of continuous work at all times.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And then, Sonny, at our conference, I remember I thought this was pretty interesting, but I think you were saying that Verity was finding errors and, maybe picking up errors that you guys may have had, that it's just making your accuracy just go through the roof, the checklists are so detailed and they're covering everything that it's really helped you find your own errors.
Well, I mean, I could tell you right now, Natalee and Casey are probably not laughing at the moment. They're pointing at. So my problem right now is not what Verity identifies. Verity has done their job and identified. My problem is some of my internal people not acting appropriately on the information that Verity identified. To tell an exact situation, I have a problem file right now that Verity identified 3 times in my system that I had a problem on this file. And my underwriter and my processor missed it, ignored it, or I'm having those direct conversations with them now. So I'm just sharing, I got problems too, like everybody else, but my problem has been not Verity doing their thing. It's been my internal people not following up what Verity has asked them to cover and correct.
Interesting. Well, that sounds great. For everyone on the call, I know we're kind of at our hour. I don't know if there's other questions. I'm hoping that this gives everyone a real strong flavor of, the capability of what Verity can do to help you as a mortgage company improve your operations, improve on errors, improve on a lot of different things if this can benefit you. Certainly, I think I know Verity has probably 6 to 10 MCT clients in some stage of processing, maybe more, as well as other mortgage companies. But if this is of interest, we're happy that we're able to bring something like this to you. You can certainly email myself. This material will be available, and I will be able to email everybody the information for Verity, Sam's contact information. You can always follow up with more detailed questions. But whatever you like, we're happy to get you in touch with Verity to be able to have a conversation if that's of interest to you. Sam, I don't know if you want to add to that or.
No, great. Thank you very much. I hope the idea here was to really kind of share some opportunity, whether it's Verity or maybe somebody else. But the idea was just going to talk about how this is potentially a model that can benefit a lot of the companies on this call.
So thank you, Sonny and Natalee and Casey for participating. Obviously, talking to you when I first met we discussed this. I thought this was really interesting. Sam and Akmal, thank you again. And to our clients, thank you for listening and participating. And if you do want more information, again, please reach out to me, Bill Petersohn. I think my emails came across to you, so you have it. I can help get you in touch. We'll send out Sam's information as well. So if you need to speak about that, you'll be able to get a hold of him. And this whole thing is recorded, and we'll be able to send this info out to you. But thank you all for participating.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Oh, wait, one more thing. I just got an answer back on cybersecurity from your New York client. All he's saying is that the cybersecurity was the whole compliance was outsourced, and it was approved by, he's a New York-based client, and the whole cybersecurity was approved. I don't know. I know, Stephen, you're the one that asked the question. I can get back and we can talk about that in more detail, and I can get you in touch with the other New York client that's doing this. And again, I will email out send you a link for you guys to be able to get to this webinar and this information. But thank you again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sonny. Thanks, Natalee.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.